Hello, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining us in this webinar where we're going to show about um, installation of BX and BXV operator. Your speaker, Jose Guillen. I am the technical service manager for CAM America, and thank you once again for joining us in this little webinar that we're going to show you about how to install this type of gate operators. So, without any further ado, let's start with the webinar right now. So basically, as you already know, we have a different type of gate operator. We have about 5 models where we have the BX, BXV, BK, BKB, and BY. But today we're going to be talking about, I'm going to give you some pointers how to make this installation easier. I know it could be overwhelming the first time that you're going to install these motors, but I guarantee you after watching this webinar you will be feeling more comfortable when it comes down to what to go into the field and installing the device. However, I can always invite you to visit our YouTube channel where you will find quick reference videos which are very helpful and will guide you through the programming process of these motors. So let's start talking about it. The sliding gate operators. Sliding gate operators, they are devices that will that help us out to move gates from left to right or right to left. And all this the same situation, we're going to find pair openings. In other words, where we have a master-slave configuration. We have 2 sliding gates, one in front of the other ones, and then they both will respond to a same command. It's for opening, for closing, as well as for safety devices. And last but not least, we always find we find our industrial application, which is these huge sliding gates that for industrial for companies and stuff like that, they require where the motor has to move gigantic weight on those. Now, jumping right now into the motors that we're going to be watching today, let's start with the BX family. The BX family is a device that has been redesigned. For those of you who have installed CAME in the past, you know that the BX family used to be a different shape and also used to have a different control board, which you can see right there in the video that I'm showing right now. These operators are ideal for single family residents. Why single family? Because these operators are not meant to be used are not designed for intensive use. That's why you can only do a certain amount of openings one after another one. Otherwise, the operator will overheat and won't work. That's why we highly recommend this to single family residents. We have 2 models. We have the 400 kilos and the 800 kilos as well. Like I said before, the type of use is at 30%. So that means that after an opening and closing cycle, they have to have a certain amount of time for resting. Otherwise, if you're going to be using the motor on, open, close, eventually it will heat up and you will have an angry customer calling you because the gate operator is not working. Maximum duct length, we're looking at 14 meters right now. This type of operator could have transmission of motorization, either rack or chain. New design includes the CAME Connect input, CAME Rio, and CAME Key. Right here, we can see the new inputs for that type of gate operator. We can actually have today, this is easier to program these devices, and I'll show you down the road how this is done. Remember, back in the days, we used to use we had to use like dip switches to configure for configuration, apply some jumpers. Today we have a 7 segment display, and then we have buttons to navigate back and forth through the menu for programming the device. I'll show you right now cycles per hour graph. It will show you basically more or less how many cycles per hour. And we have two variables over here. Not only we have the number of cycles, we have the length of the gate, and also keep in mind that temperature environment, the temperature can play a big role on this, because you have when you are in a really hot area, of course the motor itself is going to heat up. Therefore, you won't be able to have as many opening and closing cycles as you wish to have. So that's something to keep in mind. And once again, that's why we highly recommend this application for single family. Basic technical data that I'm sharing with you. Now let's talk about the BXV operator. This BXV operator, ideal solution for multi-family residents. Why? Because this is a DC operator. This DC operator means that it can be used and abused. The BXV operator, we have 4 models: 100 kilos, 600 kilos, 800 kilos, and 1,000 kilos. So that means that we can move, up to those 4 type of sizes of weight in gates. That's it. This operate on 24 volts DC. In our family, that means that we have an intensive use for this type of operators. The BXV is an intensive use operator. Therefore, that's why we recommend it for multi-family residents. So this operator, imagine in the morning when people is leaving to work, so you're going to have tons of opening and closing cycles. This is your candidate for that type of job. Now, the maximum door length, we can move actually 14, 18, and 20 meters accordingly. Because we have a DC operator, we can actually use the battery backup capability. These operators, they work with an encoder for speed reduction and also for obstacle detection. In the control board, you can store up to 250 users, and we'll show you how to program those users down the road. And then the controller board is on the top of the operator just for easy access. We also have the master slave configuration that we can do with its operators. It is developed to work with the Cami Connect, the Rio, and the Rio technology, which is an advantage of that. And then we have the maximum speed of 11 meters per minute on this type of operator. But what? Guess what? We have the fast version also. We released the version at the end of that last year, which basically is duplicating with the same features, but duplicating the speed for the meters per minute on the standard version. And again, it has more space for batteries and accessories. Okay, just the basic features of this operator: IP protection of 54. It mentions power supply says over there 230, but we have it in 230, but also in 220. But the motor itself, work with 24 volts DC, is a high-duty, heavy-duty service, which means that it's open, close, open, close, open, close, and this operator won't overheat. Now, getting into the subject right now, when you go to your customer and you start assessing the situation, looking around for what you're going to be facing, right? So the first thing to do is look at your danger areas. Why do we look at that? Because you have to prepare yourself before actually doing the installation. What you need to look for right now, the first one will be high voltage, where you can have high voltage right here on the motor itself. Right there, you're gonna be powering up the motor. So you will need either 120 or 230, depending on the area where you are. Risk of crushing right here. If you step in front of the door when it's moving, more likely you're gonna get crushed if you don't have any safety device. And then also danger of hand entrapment right here. We have the danger for hand entrapment right here, and also in this section right here. So you have to be careful. You have to look around, assess the situation, and if you see something that is not right, doesn't feel good, you don't feel comfortable working with, please let the customer know. So in that way, you are always covering your back. Let's talk about the different parts of this operator. Of course, we're going to have the lead. We're going to have the control board support. We have the gear motor. The gear motor is right there. That's the motor that basically moves the gear back and forth. We got the fixing cable, the anchoring cable, however you want to call it. We have learned that every country, every region name these parts differently, but this would be like the support to install the gate operator. Battery space. We actually have tons of space in this operator, so you can actually different devices. Of course, we have the transformer, which transforms the AC voltage from 20 or 230 into 24 volts AC. Limit switches, right there you have the limit switches. That's the indicator. That limit switch indicates the gate when to stop, when it's either closing or on the opening stage. This hot for passing cable, that if you're using our anchor or our base for the installation, you have that place to run some cables through that. And I'll get into more details about it. We're going to keep going with a different part. We have the RGP1 module, which is another accessory. Actually, these accessories could be anything like an external receiver, like a ground loop. It could be a photo cell. It could be like a transformer that you're using to power up an intercom system. Any other device that an accessory you can install right there. In fact, right here you can if you take a look at that, you can see those parts over there. They look like a DIN rail, which is really good for you to install. Like if you're, for example, if your ground loop or the external receiver has a DIN rail adapter, you can use that to install your device. Now let's keep going. Cover for board. We have a plastic cover for the board because if you don't use that, more likely you're gonna have like, we all know that lizards and different insects are the worst enemy for the electronics, especially their feces. So we have this cover to protect somehow the electronic of the gate operator. So we have the control board, we have the base for the control board, we have the battery charger housing, another place to install more accessories, another place to install more accessories. One more is to install more accessories. Like I was saying, we have different tons of space to place accessories inside the gate operator. Now we have the unlock lever, or the release lever. A lever basically allows you to put the gate on a manual stage. We have the lock right there, which is actually, it should be, you have the key. So you insert the key on the item 18, and that will release the lever, and then you move the lever back and forth in order to release the motor. And last but not least, we have the end stops, the physical stop, the end stop that we call the end stop, or the end of race fins, however you want to call it. Basically, those two parts will indicate through the end stop switch micro switches when the gate has arrived to its either opening or closing space. Let's take a look at the typical installation on a sliding gate situation. What do we have over here? First of all, of course, we need the motor. We need the motor for the installation. Second, we have the travel limits right here. We have the closing limit, and then right here we have the opening limits. So that's needed for the operator. We have the rack. So right there, you see the rack. In fact, we're offering here, we're featuring here a rack and pinion installation. So you see your rack. Something to keep in mind, our racks are coming in by meters. So it's an important question to ask your customer before when you're talking to your customer, when you head to the place, if you are the type of person that likes to visit the area before you actually install the operator, always measure your width, and that way you can have an idea how many racks you're gonna need, and that way you place the right order. You never want to fall short on of racks in an installation. That would be really, really bad. Selector is an accessory that basically allows you to either open or close the gate. That's always the selector normally is placed on their key, on the lock. So you don't want anybody accessing that unless you don't want to. The warning light, again, is another accessory. It's like the name says, it's just an accessory that when you open, when the gate is in movement, that light will be blinking and advising that the gate is moving. Photo cells, very important. We highly advise to install at least one pair of photo cells. In this case, we're looking at an installation that is very well equipped. It's a very well planned installation. If you take a look at this, we're going to see this pair of photo cell is monitoring the inside of the property. Now we have a second photo cell that is monitoring the right outside the door. It's basically monitoring this area. On top of that, we have the sensitive edge right here, that somebody gets in the middle of this area, and that person or this object is not being picked up by neither of the photo cells. This safety edge over here, when it hits the obstacle, it's gonna send the gate to an opening position. And then we have right here in this installation, we can see that the customer is monitoring, or the person is monitoring the back side of the installation. So remember, if you're coming from this side to enter the premises, you have no access to see this. So you send your opening command, and the gate is not opening. More likely, you're going to have something over here, an obstacle here. So in that way, you don't hurt that person, animal, whoever is right there. And then we have the column for photo cells. We have the end stop. End stop, I highly recommend those when you're installing the gate. Reason being is because it's very, I've seen plenty of videos, in fact, talking to installers. When they start installing the rack, they start moving their gate back and forth, and sometimes they lose track of where the gate is located. So if the gate moves all the way to the back, more likely it's gonna this gate not having a physical stop right here. This gate is gonna come loose from item number 10, and that's gonna fall on the installer. So you don't want that to happen. You don't want that on your property. That's a risk, and you don't want that you as an installer. So make sure that you always check your gates and make sure that you have an end stop. The remote control, of course, is an opening and closing command. The door rail, which we already mentioned. Junction box is just a place where you or the cables are around the installation want to be lighting. They're gonna run into this place. And then, like I said before, we have a sensitive edge right here, just to monitor that edge of the gate itself. Now, in this case, I'm just gonna mention to you how you should be getting ready to your installation. Let's say, for example, you're gonna start. This is the proposal that you have for your customer. So you have 1, 2 pairs of photos, actually 3 pairs of photo cells. You have the light on the opposite side. You're gonna have the junction, the light. I mean, the selector over there installed. So basically, this will be your goal, right? So what you're gonna do that after what you're gonna do is basically your preparation. So you should be running as many conduits as needed in order for you to accommodate the photo cell, selector, the courtesy light, and so forth. So the idea is to provide you with some idea how to do this. And right here we're providing you with some suggested measurements for you to perform the installation. However, this may vary depending on the location. We all know that. For those who install a lot, you know that. This is a recommendation, but shortly I'm going to show you samples of customers that have shared their experience, what resources they use in order to make the installation. For example, right here, we have this customer who used our base right here. And then this other installation, we can notice that the wheels are a little bit high. So in that way, they have to adapt the motor or make it higher in order to achieve that. And right here also is another sample where we have this gate operator installed over 2 aluminum tubes, which are 2x2, in order to reach to that, in order to reach the area where you're going to install your rack. And then we have another example over here, a prefabricated base. That's another example for the installation. And last but not least, we have the installation right here, which is showing a base for the gate operator that has been manufactured to even higher. This area, we know this area very well. And then our installer in this area, he basically does this a lot because there's a lot of rain in this area and the water gets, accumulates over there. And, this type of gate operator, they're not waterproof, in other words. So that's why they basically improvise and make this type of installations in order to provide a solution for the customer. In order to prepare to get ready for the installation, you have to remove the lid. You remove the lid, and you have 2 holes over here where you're going to be running your wires. However, something that I friendly advise, as I know over here, these 2 screws over here to remove the lids, they always get loose, always get lost. So that my advice, my recommendation will be, you remove the screws, remove the lid, and then put the screws back into the holes. And that way, when you're done, you don't have to be looking around for these screws, because more likely you're going to be losing them if you don't do that. And then another recommendation is to always use these plastic seals. Why? Because these holes are big, right? So you're giving more chance to either rats or lizards or any animal like that get inside the operator. And guess what? At least those places where it gets really cold in the winter time, you're gonna have a lot of issues with rats and alligators, lizards and things jumping getting inside the motor and created a problem for you. So I had the advice to use those seals. And then going to show you basically how to unlock the gate. To unlock the gate, you insert your key and then release the lever, and just move your gate back and forth. That is for the model of the BXV model. I'm going to take the risk over here and I'm going to show you how to unlock the BX model. So we're going to take the key. It says over here open. You insert the key, push it, and then you open. So you see in the panel, you can actually, I don't know if you can appreciate that, but it says E8. That's an error code. That means that the gate is open, that the lid is open. In fact, we actually have like a sensor. Even if I close it here, the error won't go away. So basically what you do, you have to unlock it. That way you activate a switch and the error goes away. It's just a safety feature for you, the installer. Now, the other very, very important part of the installation, which is the rack installation. The rack installation, as you saw before, there's no perfect gate. There's no perfect gate. There's no perfect design. As you saw in the slides back that I showed you, we have some sort of, I would call it adaptation and not improvisation. So that's something that our installers, they've been nice enough to share the installation with us. They have implemented this type of solution in order for them to have a proper a proper how do I call that, a proper feeding between rack and pinion. The idea is normally what they told me what they do is basically they align the motor next to the gate and they place one of the racks. So they start they're moving the gate back and forth until they find that point where along the way of the gate, the rack is going to be feeding properly. Like it's going to have a perfect contact, like you see over here between, it's going to take most of the space between rack and pinion right there. It's going to take a lot of the space. Once you find the sweet spot, like we call it, you proceed to anchor your gate operator, and then you start installing your rack the way it is right here, whether it's the one that is screwed or the one that is soldered to the motor, whichever you choose. And of course, we got to keep in mind that we have to leave a little space between the rack and the pinion. We don't want that rack resting on top of the pinion because the gates are designed, or these operators are designed to push the gate, not to carry and push. Because if you have the rack installed or resting on top of the pinion, more likely you're going to be calling in within the 2-3 months reporting that your gearbox is broken, and then I'm going to ask you for pictures or evidence to see what happened, and we're going to find this out that it wasn't a good installation. So it's highly advised to leave a little space between the rack and the pinion in order to facilitate the pushing situation and not the carrying and pushing situation for the motor. This is one of our racks, nylon racks. Just want to show you share that picture with you and show you one of the type of rack that we have. And then this is what I mentioned, the distance between the rack and the pinion, and also you want to make sure when you're moving your gate, so you have what we call the vertical and the horizontal regulation. So you move left and right or up and down in order to achieve, that little separation between rack and pinion, and also to cover the most space between rack and the pinion itself. You want this to be as centered as possible. But again, that is the perfect world. And the reality out there is that you have no straight gate and you have no straight track. So you're always gonna be facing these challenges. Once you get your operator set up and properly aligned, you go ahead and tighten that up, and then the next step will be install our end stops. Our end stop for the opening phase. Basically, you open your gate completely. You measure about an inch, 20 millimeters or so, 2 centimeters, and right there you're gonna place your fin for the opening side. Now for the closing side, it's about the same. You complete your gate, you move the gateway about an inch or 20 millimeters, and that's where you're gonna set up your end stop or your limit switch for your fin for the closing stage. Control board. We're gonna speak a little bit about the control board. Now we're gonna jump into the electronics of this part of the process. So we have the M&N input, which is the M for the motor. It's already pre-wired from factory, so you don't have to mess with that. Number 2 and number 3, we have the encoder connector. Then we have the limit switch connector, which is already pre-wired from factory. You don't have to touch that. And also we have the terminals 4, which is to plug in your control devices or your safety devices. Number 5, the antenna connection. I highly advise to use the antenna with an RJ58 cable. Otherwise, the control won't have that much of a reach. Now, the items from 6 to 10, those items are to install different accessories that we can add to the gate. For example, we can add them, but we already have the memory card, which is number 7. We have the AF input, which is for the remote control. We have the Rio and the Kami Connect and the RSE input for that, as well as the R700, R800, and I will show you down the road what is that for. Then we have the display right here. We have the display. We can appreciate it on the BX operator right here. That's the 3 LEDs, 3 7-segment display that allow us to facilitate the programming of the gate operator. Then we have the programming button, 4 buttons. We have enter, left, right, and escape in order to enter to access, left and right to navigate, and escape to go to the previous menu. Number 13, so that we use that input to either connect our Kami Connect or to do the master slave configuration. Number 14 would be 14 and 15 to connect either a keypad or a proximity reader. I will show you that shortly. And then number 15, the transponder, I already mentioned that. Number 16, we don't use that anymore. We don't need that because we have the Kami Connect, which is an improvement. Then we have the number 17 is for the what we call the green module. That green module is something that you connect to the gate, and when your operator is on resting mode, if you use the green module, basically your operator is going to consume close to nothing of energy. So it's a module that allows you to save energy. 19, we have the fuse for the accessory, which is a 2 amp fuse. And then last but not least, we have the input for power for the control board. We keep moving down the road, and we're gonna find okay, let's talk about a description of parts of what you do now installations. Now, since we identify all the different parts on the control board, and then you're gonna install your devices. Now, let's say, for example, you need to install your photo cell. Let's say you have a CAME, depending on the model. If you have a CAME photo cell, you're gonna have to power the photo cell between 10 and 11 or 10 and 2. But if you have a third-party device, I can tell you that right now that you can provide 24 volts to that device between the outputs 10 and 11. So you can always power your accessories through outputs 10 and 11. The output 24 is 0. That's the power that goes to the control board. And then exactly, that's the power that goes to the control board. Factory wiring. The motor is already pre-wired. The encoder is already pre-wired. And the limit switches are already pre-wired. I have to mention that the limit switches are normally close contacts. So if you're trying to troubleshoot something, look for some possible problem, I can tell you that if you place your gate halfway through, and if you measure continuity between F and FA, you will have continuity. And same case for F and FC. But let's say, for example, if you move your gate to a full open or a full closed position, depending where you have your gate located, that contact is going to be open. That's why those are normally close contacts. Now, indicated devices, we have the inputs 10 and E. On 10 and E, you can connect your lights, and it's programmable. There's a function on the menu section that you can actually program how you want this light to behave. Now, inputs 10 and 11 will always provide you 24 volts when the gate is open. If the gate is closed, you will have no power between 10 and 5. I repeat, if the gate is closed, no power. The gate is open, you will have 24 volts between 10 and 5. Let's say, for example, you have an application where you have a customer who wants to install a home automation system, right? And he wants to, the home automation system will give you the capacity of knowing when the gate is open or closed. So you have two options. You either use magnetic limit switch, which is possible to use, or you can use the 10 and 5 option, which you will connect a 24 volts relay to that output. And then when you have power, you can, the relay has one status. And when you have no power, the relay will change status, so that way you can feed that home automation system. Keep moving. Connection for control devices. As I mentioned before, it's really highly advised, really highly advised to use the antenna to connect to use the antenna to extend the range of the remote control. That's where you connect your antenna. And let's go talk about the inputs of these devices. You have 1, 2, 3, and 7. 1 is called the stop button. That's a normally closed contact, as we have the NC right here. So in other words, for this this contact has to be always closed. And with number 2 being the common, you can install a switch, right? A normally closed switch. So let's say, for example, you want to stop the gate moving at any given time. You can always press that button that will open a contact between 1 and 2, and the gate won't move. And then you have the input 2, which is common. 3, that stands for partial opening. However, this input is programmable. That's a normally open contact, and let's say we see here a push button. If you press that button, this will close this contact, will send a pulse, basically simulating a pulse closing the contact between 2 and 3, and that gate will open either partially for pedestrian or a full opening, an opening command. And then we have 7. If you have a dip switch, look at something common over here. You see the common of what we consider the common of these switches that we have over here. They always go to number 2. Number 2 is a common. And then you have the other side going to number 7. Number 7 could be either open or closed, depending on the position of the gate. I have to mention that input 3 and input 7, we can program those. We can tell them, for example, number 3 can be either partial opening or full opening. And then number 7 could be open stop, close stop. It could be open only or close only. So you have 4 options for number 7. And then we have, remember at the beginning when I mentioned that we needed some R700 and R800 cards to enable this? Well, right here we have it. So if you can actually connect a wired proximity reader to input S1 and ground, of course, adding the R700, or you can actually connect a keypad to input A and B, adding the R800 card. And for your remote control, of course, you have to add your AF card in order to enable that function on the motor. Photocells, like I mentioned before, you can either connect your photocells at the camera way, which is the one that we showed right here. Our inputs, we have two inputs for safety. We have the input CX and input CY. And those inputs are programmable. We have the most common option, which are C1, which is pre-opening during closing. And we have the closing during opening function. Now, if you're installing a third-party photocell, you must provide power to that device through 10 and 11. And then you can either, the common from your photocell will go number 2. And the normally close contact from your photocell can go either to CX or CY, depending on which input you're going to be using. That's up to you. We don't highly recommend any one of those. I mean, we have a preference. It's just up to you which one you want to use. And then through the programming menu, you should be able to program either function. And we're going to show you that down the road. Sensitive edges. So we have the sensitive edge, one type, which is just a dry contact, just a switch. It will interrupt. So if we have normally close contacts over here, so if the sensitive edge makes contact with an obstacle, it will open the contact and the gate will move, or it's going to go back, depending on the function that you choose. Or you have the one that is power, where you should have your sensitive edge power through the 10 and 11, and then your normally closed contact will go to the right place. Real system is a wireless system for photocells and courtesy light. So it is a wireless system that we can actually install in our gate. You have like you of course need the adapter, and of course you're going to need the photocell as well as the light. They work with batteries. The battery should be lasting about a year and change, or year and 6 months, year and 3 months, depending how you use them, and they are very durable, very reliable. Type of connection for master slave configuration. If we're going to do a master slave configuration, remember at the beginning I showed you that we have a scenario where we have two gates, one in front of each other, and then we have pressed an opening command. It will open both gates. That's the scenario that we have over here. We are able to do that, but we have to use an RSE card as well as wire from one gate to the other one. I'll show you down the road more or less how we do that. And then let's jump really quick on the programming instruction. How do we access the menus? I'm gonna switch over here and then stop share. And you're gonna see the gate operator now on a bigger size. So let's try to get this closer so we can get a better image. So what we do over here is it's getting darker, so that way you can see better. Now, right now our gate operator is on, and we see that we have the power LED right there. Perfect. So we want to access. We have no signs of any kind on the 3 LEDs. But if we press enter, first we come into F1. Those are the functions. So we have the F menu, we have the A menu, and we have the U menu, right? So we can actually navigate with the left, with a right arrow. We can go to the left with the left arrow. Let's say, for example, I want to choose an option. We just press enter, and it will show you whether it's on or off. If I want to change this option, I use my right arrow and change it to on. If I want to take that option, I just press enter, and that will take the value. Otherwise, if I want to escape, I will leave. I just escape as many times as I have to in order to get back to this menu. Now, when you are installing a gate operator, let me see over here. Let's go back to the slide. Just a second. Show the right. Okay. I just show you really quick how to move back and forth through the menus, and then I'm going to talk to you about the different menus that we have. There's a lot of, you might be thinking, oh, there's a lot of options, but I'll tell you what I'm going to show you. I'm going to mention to you the most used one. The most used one are F2 and 3. That's used to program the photo cells. Let me show you just really quick over here. F2. You press enter, and it will show you it's either disabled, or you have C1, C2, C3, C7, C8, and R7, which is one of the options that we have. I invite you to go on the menu and investigate a little bit more what's the meaning of each one of them. But you already know that when you're installing a gate operator and you need to install a photocell, you know that you have to provide power. If it's a photocell, it could be either 10 and 11 or 10 and 2. But if a third-party photocell, you can go through 10 and 11 to provide power, and then you can use the 2CX or 2CY. And how do you program those? Between F2 and F3. Next one. If you're using, for example, a scenario that we see a lot locally, a free exit sensor. Say, for example, you want to install a free exit sensor, and you want to know, how do I do that? Well, we can do it. You can do it both two ways. You can do it between connecting your free exit sensor to 2 and 7 or 2 and 3, and that's up to you. It's up to you whichever function you want to use. However, you can remember you can program inputs 2 and 7 through F7 to either do open close, open stop close, open only, or close only. That would be an option. Or you can use 2 and 3P. And 2 and 3P, you only have you have three options. It's coming as a pedestrian opening, but then you have the partial opening that you can actually calibrate, or you can program how much you want the gate to open. That's what we call the partial opening. You can go to an 80% of the travel. So that's up to you. And then the other one should be the only open. So we have the partial open, and then we have the full opening between those two options. So you can either use 2 and 7 or 2 and 3P. Now, what other option we have over here? We have the automatic closing time. Automatic closing. How do I get to automatic closing? It should be F19. So you press enter, you get to F1, and then you move on to you get to F19. You press enter, that's off. But if you want to enable it, you start adding numbers, and each number will be a second. So you can have, like, I don't know, 17 seconds. You press enter, so, and then right there has been enabled. If you are not sure that the option has been picked up by the operator, you press enter again. That'll tell you 17 seconds. If you want to leave, escape, and you're back to the root. Now, that was automatic closing time. And then the other one that we use a lot should be about F37 and 38. And that will basically give you the slowdown starting point for either opening or the closing section. Now, normally, the gate operators are programmed by factory to a 25. I think we disable the encoder on this one. Okay. Then we have 37. 38. But anyways, those allow you to do that function right there. And then what else we do? Well, a function that we use a lot, which is F50, and I recommend you to use it, F50 and F51. F50, these motors, they have a memory up here. Right here, there's a memory that you can actually remove. What do we do with that? Let's say, for example, that you have an installation on an apartment complex that you have about, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 users, let's say. And then you install your gate operator, and you took the initiative to actually do the data on the memory roll. And let's say, I don't know, down the road there is an emergency, and there is a power outage, and the current peak just damaged the control board, or maybe a lizard came in and peed on the control board, it damages the board. You can always come back, remove the memory roll, install the new board. You install your old memory into that board, and you go and press F51. So all the information that you had on the day before will roll into the new control board. So you don't have to be calling each one of the users or each one of the person that you were adding to that installation. So that's a really nice feature that we have. And then I encourage you to use it. The other very used function, which should be your first step when you install an operator, will be F54. F54 will allow you to tell the motor which one is the opening direction. I will show you shortly how to do that. And then keep going down the road. We have the U1, which is the function assigned to add remote controls. And then we have the travel calibration. So let's keep moving forward. So what do you do when you once you install your gate operator, right? You set up your gate operator in your base, you anchor the gate operator, you install your rack, and you have your rack properly, it's perfectly aligned. You have space, and you have the orientation, and then you have your end stop fence installed, properly installed, that will guide you, will indicate when it's open and the closing point. And then after that, you added power to the device. You connect your power, in this case, to the control board, And then after you do that, basically you come to the operator, you're gonna tell the operator the opening direction. How do you know that? The opening direction will be like this. So basically you stay inside of the property and you look out towards the outside. And if the gate is opening towards the left-hand side, you don't have to change anything. Our gate operators are coming that way by default. They open to the left. Well, however, if you are inside the property and this gate open to the right-hand side, you will have to change the parameter F54. This is what I'm going to show you right here. I press enter, move to F54. Once I get to F54, I press enter. Because my gate is opening towards the right, I have the number 1 choose. If my gate is opening to the left, I change it over here, press 0, and now I tell my gate operator that my opening point is towards the right-hand side. So, towards the left-hand side, I'm sorry. We'll change it over here. Following step, add the calibration. We need to do the calibration. Why do we do the calibration? Calibration is basically calibrating. We have to calibrate the encoder. The gate has to measure how many revolutions did it take, how many cycles did it take to achieve a full opening and to achieve a full close. Why do we need this? Because that when you do that, the motor, you can program the slowdown points that I was mentioning before. You can program that. So that's it's nice to have that, because when the gates are either fully closing or fully opening, there's a slowdown process, and when it hits the limit switch, you don't have that boom, that impact really hard, because there's been a slowdown the motor slowdown previously. Now, to do the calibration, I will go to A3. I'm actually pressing the left button on this case. You press I disable it. Yeah, disable it. Let me go back to the F11. And then I enable the encoder, and then I have to do the calibration. That's always happen when you have to calibrate the encoder. You will see those three, like, in fact, that's what happened the first time we did you install the motor. So the first thing that we do is go to F54. We tell the motor that our opening source is right, that's perfect. And then I go back to A3. And I will do a calibration. I change it to on, press enter, it's going to do a closing cycle, sorry. So my gate is closing right now. It gets to a full closing, and then it's going to come to a full opening right here. Once the gate achieves a full opening, and then she's going to do this little, back and forth thingies, and it's going to go back to A3, and that means that the encoder has been calibrated. You can actually exit out from there. So that's the encoder calibration. And then if you want to add remote control user, basically we do the following. You press enter. I'm going through the left button and go back to U1, press enter. What function do I want? Either 1, 2, 3, or 4. Those functions, they have different values. Like as you can see right here, step will be open, close. When you press the button open, you press the button close. Sequential, open, stop, close. Stop means that you press the button, it will open. If you press the button, it will stop. You press again, it will close. And then you have the full open or a partial opening, which is number 4. Let's say, for example, I want to use open close. And that one means that it's going to be the first remote control. It's going to be programming. You press the button. And right there it says stop. Stop means that that button has been stored in the memory. So you already programmed your button for the remote control. And that's basically, you press your remote control, you test it, into a closing cycle, and then it will do its opening as well. So that's for the remote control. And see right there, we set up the automatic closing for the device. We set it up before at 17 seconds. So when it reaches out to the 0 second, it's going to go back and close itself. Let's just wait for the cycle to complete, and there you go. The gate is closed. Now, right here we mentioned that in case that we find the master-slave connection. If we have the master-slave connection, you have to install both operators. You have to calibrate. Well, you actually have to, when you install each operator, you have to tell the master you open to the left, the slave operator, you open to the right. Once you do that, you connect all your safeties and all your commands devices to the master operator. Once you're done connecting your photo cells, perhaps your free exit, maybe you have a couple push buttons, you're programming, I don't know, 5 or 6 remote control. When you do that, everything on the master device. Once you're done doing the programming on the master, you have to install the RSE cards on each operator, F49 only on the master device, and then you do F52. And that way, you're sending all the information back to the slave operator, and it's going to react according to whatever you do on the master device. Most common errors, we have quite a few errors over here, but I'm going to show you the most common ones, which is E3, the encoder, which is not detecting movement, or perhaps somebody moved the gate out of place, and then you need to recalibrate that. E8, in this case, like I showed you before, which is only in this device, you can see that. Oh, and also the fast BXV. If you open the gate, you're going to see that you have to not only close the gate, the lid, but also engage the sensor. Oh, I'm sorry. Disengage the sensor, disengage the lock, and then you can see the error message. The error message on the device. If I engage the sensor, error message goes away. E15. The E15 is the there's an option, the U5, that you can choose actually what type of remote control you want to use. You have the option to use all of them, or you have the option to, oh no, I want this motor to only work with top type remote control or the rolling codes. So sometimes people, they make those changes and realize that they made the change, and when they try to use the remote control, they get that E15 error. And last but not least, we have the C0 and C1. C0 activates when you enable the total stop, or you don't have a sensor in it. Let me show you really quick. See, you see C0 right there. That means that you're supposed to have the total stop button connected between 1 and 2, and that's a normally close contact. But because you don't have anything connected, and you enable this input, guess what? You're getting that CC error. You get that, you just press enter again, and you disable it. And voila, the error is gone. Also, C1. I've seen C1 a lot where people does not align properly the photo cells. Remember, that's a normally close contact. So those beams, they have to be, the laser beam has to go back to the reflector, hit the reflector, and come back, and they have to be aligned. So if they are not properly aligned, you're gonna see this error, which is C1. You're gonna see that error always in the screen. You have two options. You either align properly the photo cell, perhaps the photo cell is bad, or you can always come back here, go to F2, disable it, press enter, and escape, and you have disabled that option for now. What else? Power supply is missing. The power is missing. You can always check the power. There is a fuse power on where you connect the power to the control board, or the power that comes from the street. You can also have the accessories, fuse. What else? The gate doesn't open, doesn't close. I just showed you a couple of common errors that we see a lot, which is C1 or C0. Anyways, we help you out. If you run into any problem you cannot fix it, we highly encourage you to send us your installation pictures so we can post it in social media. Of course, shout outs are going to be given, and we can show your work out there. In case that we get a work in your area, we can always refer to you. Well, I have nothing to say, but thank you very much for joining us. You have a wonderful rest of the afternoon, and hope to see you soon.